Democrats, South Africans, members of the international community, good evening and welcome back to our special broadcast for the National Convention for 2024. I am your host, Karabo Lerato Khachau. We're coming to you live here at the Empress Palace in Johannesburg, Gauteng, where we're waiting to hear from the leaders of the 7 political parties represented here at the National Convention on what the deliberations for the day have been. We already had a briefing earlier today where they gave us updates around what it is they have agreed on. Part of what they have agreed on was their plan into government on how they're going to share their power, their policy positions, and everything that underscores the government, the new government that South Africa is so badly waiting for in 2024, because we know status quo does not work for us. So we are in the press briefing here now, where any second from now they will be coming in to give us their updates. We'll hear from leaders of political parties themselves, including the independent chairperson of the convention, Professor William Gumede. We'll have an interview session there available as well. But also, I think today we need to take a moment to look back between yesterday and today. What we have been able to achieve between these 2 days is something that is very, very special for South African politics, given our democratic dispensation. We've had 30 years of a one-party rule, and finally these political parties have decided to come together to say that currently this does not serve the interest of South Africans. South Africa deserves a new government, a government that cares, a government that will ensure that there is a secure future for every South Africans, and that's exactly what it is that they're trying to do. But then again, we need to look back as to why this venue in particular was important. We are at the Empress Palace. This is the venue where the CODESA negotiations that took place between 1990 and 1993 took place, ushering in our first democratic elections in 1994. And so it is very important that an event of this magnitude would also find expression here within these grounds, because we are turning the tide. We are creating history in our own right. So we've heard from political leaders as well who've spoken about how, as much as they are playing their part to ensure that we get to where we want to get in 2024, we as citizens of South Africa also have a responsibility to show up and exercise our power in the election. And we can only do so by ensuring that we are registered to vote correctly. And so I call upon everyone at home viewing now to visit check.da.org.za. That is check.da.org.za. These political parties require all hands on deck. You and I, together with all our family and friends, need to make sure that we turn up in the election in 2024 and give the power and exercise our power, take it back ultimately to see a new government. Currently, the room is packing as we see, as I'm looking at it now. We have more journalists from media houses coming in, and any second from now, the leaders will be coming in. Just a quick recap on what it is that they have agreed on so far. Yesterday, we've heard that the leaders agreed on a name, and that name is the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa. I'll repeat it. It's the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa. They agreed on a common vision, a vision that is centered on the principles of a rule of law, principles of good governance, and principles that bind these political parties towards ultimately delivering a government that will be different from the government of the day. Today, we also heard from the independent chairperson of the convention, Professor William Gumede, citing that political parties would have agreed on a declaration that we seek to see as they come here now later on. Hopefully they'll sign it, or we'll see it, and we hope and crossing fingers and believe, most importantly, that this will happen. Because these political parties, not only did they vow to die to self, but they vowed to putting their differences aside, to putting a mature hat on, ultimately for the best interests of South Africa. And so that moment will be absolutely beautiful for all of us to witness back at home. The other thing that they agreed on are 7 principles that are very important around how they're going to share power, how they're going to direct their policy positions. One of these principles is constitutionalism and the rule of law. The other thing that they are very much interested in is ensuring that there's a merit-based system of appointments within government, because this is something that we have never seen in the past. All we've seen is cadre deployment and everything else. And this is something that we are trying, or political parties rather, are trying to get rid of in this instance. The other thing that they spoke of, most importantly, which was a contentious bone coming into this convention, was who's going to occupy which position. We've heard in the media briefing earlier on that the multi-party charter for South Africa has agreed that their division of allocations for these positions would result in the majority leading political party, that is the political party that has the most votes, that is taking hold of the position of the leader of government business. We've also heard that they are strictly focused on having a separation of powers that's going to work, and this means that whoever is in government can't control the legislature. So I see that everybody's here and they are ready. I'll now be crossing over live to the media briefing.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, everybody, have all the media got their sound checks done? Who wants to come up and put sound? I'm going to move away because I'd like to introduce you. These are the parties that have been negotiating. Okay, for everybody, I'm going to move out so you can have a photo opportunity.
Nerine will release us.
Okay. Has everybody got their pictures?
No. He's just coming in.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see. Okay, so you just arrived. You want to take pictures again? Please feel free. And I did call sound checks, but I've got the mic on now. Okay, I'll do further sound checks. Sorry, I'm just talking. Everybody smiles.
Yay! Lift off.
Okay, we'll give an aerobic mic for you just now. Everybody, this is the team, as I indicated to you. These are the negotiators. We'll introduce them to you. We've got our pictures. Okay, so the other members of the team, of the political parties, are going to leave, and then we're going to go into the process. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, thanks everybody. Welcome. This is a closing briefing for the negotiations that have been happening for the multi-party charter for 2024. We're going to go through a process, and we've got lots of exciting things to announce to you. And as has been practice, we will start with Professor Gumede. But before I call Professor Gumede up, on behalf of all the parties, I've been asked to specifically thank the media, firstly for their patience and for their enthusiasm, and then also why the parties haven't given interviews as the process has gone along. It was an agreement to ensure that the negotiations could happen and that things didn't get derailed along the way in that context. So that is why they've been scarce. But they are here now, and they will all be having some statements, and they will all be available for interviews to all of you. So thank you, and thank you for being part of what we think is an historic moment. I would like to, having said that, and I hope you all accept that, I would like to call on Professor Gumede to make some exciting announcements.
We've got a deal. Hashtag Charter 24 is on track to the moon and beyond. Let me, I thought it would be very, very short because you've heard, I've been speaking throughout and I want sound.
It's gone again. The very kind gentleman who helped me just now. Okay. It was on a second ago. Otherwise, can we have the roving mic? Gary, don't kill yourself. Can we just take the roving mic until we sort out this microphone?
Thanks. Very happy to announce formally that the parties have agreed and that they've signed up after very robust negotiations that they agreed on a multi-party charter for South Africa and that we can formally announce a partnership, a pre-election coalition partnership. It's a historical moment for South Africa. This is the first in the modern era of South Africa that a coalition is cobbled together before an election campaign. It is very historic. And I think I feel this is the moment really to let the leaders speak rather than me speaking, but just to say it's a historical moment and to commend the maturity of all of the leaders here. It hasn't been easy, but they have presented the best they can be at the individual level. So they have, at the beginning, as the negotiator, I asked them to set aside all of their preconceived ideas, their belief systems, and their ideologies to reimagine a different South Africa. And to make decisions on behalf of South Africa, not on behalf of them as individuals or their party interests. To every time when they make a decision, to think about the country that we want, where our children can play freely in the street, where women can walk after dark, and where we can create a world for everyone, and where we care for every South African, and that we use and decisions that is based on our diversity, that our diversity is our strength as a nation, and that together, only together, we can actually build the country of our dreams. And our dreams have been deferred, but it's still within our reach. And that we can still restore that hope because the nation expects, the country wants hope. And ordinary South Africans are desperate. And they want, they want something better. And I think the leaders here have risen to the occasion. And I want to commend them. And what we're going to do today on this agreement, they're going to sign on this agreement, and they're going to sign publicly, and it will commit them to not only as partners to collaborate, but it will also commit them to hands-on as part of this agreement to act with honesty, with integrity, always in the best interest of all of South Africa, not in the interests of themselves or in their party's interests. Thank you. And at this moment, I want to say, God bless South Africa. God bless every of the individuals here. God bless every South African.
God bless you.
Thank you, everybody. And in the interest of transparency, the agreement is going to be signed in front of all of you. Can we bring the table forward? I'm going to call up each party member, and they're going to come and sign in your presence in order to assist you. To see, Professor Gumede will be assisting them, and we'll call them forward. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Is that okay for everybody? Further forward? Okay. The parties have agreed, and Professor Gumede, can I start calling them forward? So, Dr. Luyenge, can I start with you since you're on that side? So, Dr. Zukile Luyenge, President of ISANCO, the Independent South African National Civic Organization. Can I ask you to come forward? And Professor Gumede will assist you. Is this mic? No, okay. Do you want to have... Thank you very much. The first signature is on Mr. Christopher Claassen, President of Spectrum National Party. Can I call you forward towards Professor Gumede? Thank you. Professor Gumede, do you want the microphone?
Yes, absolutely.
So, maybe Professor Gumede wants to clarify what the document is that everybody's signing. Okay.
I can clarify in terms of, this is the document of agreement that we're signing. It is the multi-party charter for South Africa agreement between the political parties.
Okay, thank you. I'm next going to call up, William, you can keep the microphone, I've got the microphone now. Okay, I'm next going to call up Herman Mashaba, President of ActionSA.
Thank you. Commit. More than commit.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Herman Mashaba, President of ActionSA. Next up is Mr. John Steenhuisen, Federal Leader of the Democratic Alliance.
Okay, that's fine. So help me God.
Thank you very much. Next to sign will be Honourable V.F. Hlabisa from the Inkatha Freedom Party, President of the Inkatha Freedom Party.
You commit to the process?
Yes, I commit.
Next up, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, leader of the Freedom Front Plus. Last but not least.
Ek onderneem.
Goed. And then Mr. Neil de Beer, President of the United Independent Movement, also come forward to sign. And I'm sure Professor Gumede will read you some excerpts or headlines at the end of what the agreement is saying. Thank you, Professor.
I absolutely commit.
Professor Gumede will take you through now what everybody's just signed.
I'm only going to do the headlines. So starting off, the parties to this agreement agreed to contest the 2024 national and provincial elections as autonomous individual parties. They realized that they share common ground in respect of many of the solutions needed to address the most pressing challenges facing South Africa today. And they wish to record and to publicize the terms of this agreement to offer a compelling new direction through a multi-party platform that can win support of the majority of South Africans. The undersigned political parties come together at a time when South Africans are desperate for hope. They can only come from a new political direction for our young democracy. While they contest elections as individual parties, South Africans will see that they are greater than the sum of their parts. The name of this agreement is the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa. The nature of the agreement, it is the form of a pre-election arrangement the vision for South Africa, a new government to build a just, inclusive and prosperous South Africa based on opportunity, freedom and security for all its citizens. Priorities for the new government: growing the economy and creating jobs, ending load shedding and achieving energy security, achieving law and order, ensuring quality education, deliver basic services to high quality infrastructure, building a professional public service that delivers to all and ending cadre deployment, ensuring quality healthcare within a caring healthcare system, and building a social relief framework for South African households living in poverty. Set governing principles: South African Constitution, the rule of law, equality before the law, decentralizing power to the lowest effective level of government, accountable, transparent government with zero tolerance for corruption, capable government, caring government, an open market economy, evidence-based policies, redress of the unjust past, promoting non-racialism and unity in diversity. The declaration of intent. The parties here commit to the vision, priorities, principles, and common program of the Charter. Therefore, they will not entertain any working arrangement or co-governing agreements with the ANC, EFF, or any rival formations. And they will not vote for any office bearers of the ANC and EFF, nominated either directly or indirectly at any inaugural meetings of the National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, and provincial legislatures. Full quote, "Our mission is to unseat the ANC, keep out the EFF, and usher in a multi-party government following the 2024 national and provincial election," close quote. Principles of sharing public power. I'll take some of the key elements of that rather than all of it. A collective manifesto will be drawn up, which will combine the detailed policy positions of each party. A system of monitoring and evaluation will be developed to ensure delivery, and that system will be made public, and progress will be monitored and publicly reported on. In determining the setting of positions, so I'm only taking out some of the key things. I'm not reading through all of the document. 1, representation based on approximately proportional to the election results. That's now in terms of appointments when they go into government. Merit-based consideration as to which party has the best candidate for a position. They want to ensure that the diversity of the parties will be represented in leadership positions, and that the principle of separation of powers will be observed within the coalition. That the cabinet will reflect the diversity of the South African people. That there is no requirement that a leader of the largest party is de facto to be nominated for the position of the president. The largest party in the coalition that arises from this agreement and that does not hold the position of the President of the Republic will hold the position of leader of government business. So in the event that, for example, the group decides that the party within the coalition that gets the most votes, that its leader won't necessarily become the president, but that the largest party would be the leader of government business. Any candidate put forward for election as an office bearer must undergo an independent lifestyle audit. And that the outcomes of the lifestyle audit must be made public. Of all lifestyle audits will be made public. And that there will be a fundamental and wholesale review of the ministerial handbook. Duration of this agreement, we're coming to an end. So the agreement starts on the day that the founding partners, they did it now, affix the signatures to the document. So it started now, officially. And that agreement may only be amended by consensus among the parties. And a party can exit only if they provide a written notice to the multi-party Charter for South Africa, or if they are removed for whatever reasons by consensus agreement. I mean, that brings me to the end. So I say what I've done is I've used extracts rather than the whole document. And as a chairperson of the process, I think I also have to commend John Steenhuisen for starting the process, to acknowledge, and also as the biggest party of the coalition to acknowledge the compromises made, to acknowledge the maturity, to acknowledge the spirit, collaborative spirit of the engagement, and then each and every leader for how they've approached the negotiations. As I say, it was robust, it was challenging, but it's very, very important, I think, the maturity, and it is going to be very important to have that maturity to turn around South Africa, because I don't think personally a government without maturity, without grown-ups, real, genuine grown-ups, to manage South Africa, if we don't have that, we're not going to turn around South Africa. There has to be maturity, and grown-ups will have to manage the country in a real way. And I think they've proven it during these negotiations. As I say, it was tough, it was robust, it was challenging, and they had to put aside many of their own beliefs and the belief systems, the things that I've grown up with. They had to put it aside for a greater common purpose. And that greater common purpose is South Africa, the idea of South Africa, the idea of a South Africa that is better, the idea of a South Africa that's much more caring to everyone who lives in the country, the idea of a South Africa that is inclusive and that is diverse, and in that diversity cares for everyone.
Thank you very much. That was Professor Gumede, who has been the independent chair of the entire process. We are now going to move into, you're going to hear from all members of the political parties. They're each going to make a statement, and then we'll go into questions. So I'm going to call them up in the order that we called yesterday morning, just to make it clear. So we're going to begin with Mr. Christopher Claassen, President of Spectrum National Party.
Good day, South Africa, media, party delegates. My name is Christopher Claassen, and I am the president of the Spectrum National Party, a political party who has got an equal race governing policy. The party is represented in 9 provinces. We are celebrating our 4th year anniversary on the 28th of November 2023. And again, I say, we, the Spectrum National Party, bow our heads in gratitude. And this time we can deliver testimony of a gigantic moment in the history of South Africa. And I wish to use this opportunity to tell all the leaders of the different political parties that have gathered in this convention room over the last 2 days, and also all the media representatives that gathered here over the last 2 days, that the experience of myself and my party delegates was that this convention met the goals to which all parties aspired to. And in this process, we found a lot of common ground among us. We must understand, though, that we agreed to continue to recruit more parties to join the multi-party charter for South Africa, who has common goals like us. When we will be considered as full or saturated, then the charter will become more transparent about the formation of the future political system of our nation. The charter agreed at this convention that the general desire among the parties will be to develop South Africa into a first world country and move away from our status as a third world country. We also wish to use this opportunity to communicate to the media that the multi-party charter of South Africa is not a political party, but rather an agreement amongst all the parties that are involved at this convention to form a charter, meaning written and agreed guidelines defining a new vision for South Africa, including shared governing principles to achieve the ultimate goal of the multi-party charter of South Africa, namely to provide South Africans with an alternative to the current government, the ANC. We reason we all can agree upon. Each party affiliated now and in the future, we always treasure their own identity, and the people of South Africa will continue to vote for their party of choice. And if that party happens to be a member of the multi-party charter of Africa, then the odds of winning elections against the ANC and EFF will always be more likely. Our party declares that we found common ground on solutions to challenges facing South Africa during the continuation of the convention over the past 2 days. The agenda for this convention was covered, and we report that the measure of cooperation experienced among the parties in attendance in the commendable and inspires hope of this idea and the future of South Africa. We declare that this multi-party national convention, with enough reasons to trust all the parties committed to the shared governing principles. We all agreed to this convention room over the last 2 days, and the SNP further declare that we will remain loyal to the agreement we entered with all the other parties affiliated to the multi-party charter of South Africa. The Spectrum National Party wants to use this opportunity to thank the multi-party's independent chair, Professor William Gumede, and his support team for the great job they have done and chair and coordinated this historical nation convention. Last but not least, we thank the media, restaurant staff, security, and all other departments involved here at the Imperious Place who have collectively contributed to make the National Multi-Party Convention a huge success. I thank you, South Africa, and what now remains to be done by all the citizens of our nation to show their support for our idea to save South Africa is to vote for any party other than the ANC and the EFF. The power is now in our hands. We need to fly or die, and we have come together to say, South Africa, we can change your life. May God bless you and this charter. Christopher Claassen, President, Spectrum National Party. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Claassen. I will now call upon Mr. Neil de Beer, President of the United Independent Movement. Mr. de Beer.
Aware. We need to create awareness. Salam. Goeiemiddag. Good afternoon. Molweni Baslali. Jambo Habarigani. Umzuri. For people outside the border. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. That is the poem called Invictus, a poem written on the walls of Madiba's cell that kept him going every day. Isizwe sethu, our nation. Freedom comes at a sacrifice. And today, the leaders here, indeed, have done exactly that. History is something that we must never forget. But this nation cannot continue living in it. This nation must move forward. This country at the stage had the TRC, but it failed. It failed because we got to the truth, but in my opinion, we never got to reconciliation. I hope that this will be the beginning of such reconciliation for all. The future does not lie in our hands, for the elders sitting here, which I am one, are merely the custodians of this future for the younger generation to come. And that makes an obligation to us that whatever decision we take today has a major effect on the future generation of this country. And I ask that we make the right decisions. German racism does not belong in this society, no matter what side it comes from. We should fight it with everything that we have. Die ware waarde van 'n gemeenskap lê vandag nie in diamante, goud en silwer nie. Dit lê in ons mense van die Republiek van Suid-Afrika. Today, in conclusion, we will not accept the word impossible. We will make it possible. Clearly, to the citizens of this country, Yantukwano, Yetu, Kubunye Betu, our future lies in our diversity. May God bless this Republic of South Africa. And we welcome you to come along with us and take the steps to a new beginning of a great country. And we say the words halala and stop using cliches like Ubuntu and Masakane and make them real for a change. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. De Beer, President of the United Independent Movement. Next up is Dr. Zukile Luyenge, President of ISANCO, the Independent South African National Civic Organization.
Good evening, South Africa. The multi-party charter leadership is led by leaders of all like-minded minds. The political parties who think as alike in South Africa, the members of the media, our colleagues outside there, on behalf of ISANCO, with a mandate from Abahlali, not from the ANC. In 2021, when we were only 6 months old, we managed to get 14 PR seats across the country in municipalities where we chose to participate. We are here today, and in appreciation of our invitation to participate at this level, we commit ISANCO to bring what it will take this multi-party charter to the sky, lead South Africa, remove what is not needed, remove any player that is tired. Emanating from the conglomerates from diverse backgrounds and ideologies has culminated into a united force to reckon with, determined to deliver a people-caring government, a people-caring driven development belief where communities will participate in their own development, where the attributes of a developmental state, where communities communicate directly, participate in their own development without entertaining the friends that are coming from elsewhere, or those who are in close proximity with those that are in power. ISANCO is highly determined to correct the mistakes and the misnomer that we were part of, to put the current government to be in power, and all of a sudden, the word that is coming from the community is ignored. We are so happy to be part of providing an alternative government in South Africa. Joblessness, inequalities, and poverty exacerbated by corruption are our enemies. A political party, no matter how old it can be, it will only remain relevant when it responds positively to the problems that affect the communities. It is not the age of any political party that will keep it in power, and no level of arrogance will keep those that are in power, even if we are being suffocated and there is no element of suffocation and destabilization which is brought to disrupt this arrangement. We will make sure that come 2024, there is a relief amongst all South Africans, because an alternative, credible, and a government that is coming from the people, the political parties who actually put aside their ideologies and put the aspirations of the communities of South Africa, I will then further commit and say the leadership that is in front of you, South Africa, is highly determined to rise to the standard. I thank you.
Thank you very much to Dr. Zukile Luyenge, President of ISANCO. I'll next call up Mr. Herman Mashaba, President of ActionSA.
Fellow South Africans, first of all, I'd like to recognize members of the media for their patience over the last 2 days. Fellow leaders of political parties present, for your unwavering commitment to this very difficult process. I also like to really convey my gratitude to all South Africans for following these proceedings and for the overwhelming encouragement we have received thus far. I entered politics at the age of 56, after many years in business. I was frustrated by a government that has left the South African people and actually let them down. For the first time here, I've seen political leaders come together in the interest of all South Africans, and engage for all South Africans. The foundation laid by this group over the past 3 months has laid the foundation upon which a new government can be built, one which is stable and that can address the pressing needs of all South Africans. I pledge ActionSA to this multi-party charter for South Africa. I recognize the role of ActionSA must play to bring the ANC voters and the new ones to this group that will be instrumental in our success. The best way ActionSA can serve this multi-party charter is for ActionSA to succeed. That is why we will grow ActionSA in all 9 provinces. That is why we will develop ActionSA's offer. Let me pay tribute to Professor Gumede and his team for their role in independently facilitating this very necessary process. I praise their bravery for standing up when called upon to serve their country. Today, I believe we have started to build the platform that is going to free South Africans from the ANC and start the work required to fix our country. I've read media reports the last few days that seek to designate some parties as winners and losers here, and I want to dispel that notion. The only winners are the South African people, and the only losers are political parties that do not join this multi-party charter for South Africa. This will not be the final group of parties in the multi-party charter, and our work is far from done. It was also not a 2-day event. It began 3 months ago, and it has involved countless hours that ran late into many nights. It has been an impressive, it has been unprecedented. Not many South Africans will know that our laws give only 2 weeks to form a government after an election. In many countries, this process takes months. But let it be known that when the history of our country is written, years from now, these leaders who stood up when it mattered were counted and started the work to fix our country. And I'd like to thank them. I stand here and invite South Africans to do something that they have not done in a long time. To begin again and believe that with their support, we can have hope. With their support, we can fix South Africa. And with their support, we can imagine life beyond the ANC, something that just 2 days ago, many people never believed it was possible. I remember quite well when we started this process, some people never believed that something like this can be achieved. And I think it is only fair for them to have believed like the way they did. Over the last few years of our multi-party government in local government, I'm sure you're aware we've encountered challenges. But please show me any country with a multi-party governments that do not go through what South Africa is going through. But one thing for sure, South Africans are a relentless community and country. It is for that reason I'm standing here with my fellow party leaders. We decided to put our differences aside and think about people of our country, think about our children and our grandchildren and create a better future for them. And I commit ActionSA to this process until its execution in 2024. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Mr. Herman Mashaba, President of ActionSA. Next up is Dr. Pieter Groenewald, leader of the Freedom Front Plus.
Thank you very much. Evening to everyone. I want to start by saying that the end result of signing the multi-party charter for South Africa is not the end. This is the beginning, and the beginning of change. People say they want change in South Africa. I see this as a change for the future of South Africa. It's a game changer. It's unique. Why is it unique? It is unique in this sense that you can have 7 different opposition political parties who could reach consensus on sound principles and sound priorities to create a better future, but still keep their own identity, their own independency, still putting forward their own policies. And it is unique that so many parties could reach a consensus on the sound principles and the priorities. And that's why I say it's a game changer. But I said yesterday, that means also that the electorate must also change. You can have no change without change. This is a change. Make use of that opportunity to bring change in the government in the future. It is also a matter of that we must understand, because there are some people that say, but maybe other foreign countries will save South Africa. They will intervene. No. We have to intervene. We, all South Africans, must ensure that we get to the voting polls, and we can bring that change. And freedom is not free. Freedom requires that we do something. And as opposition parties, we came forward, putting on the table a multi-party charter for South Africa. And my appeal is, let's make use of that opportunity. Let's bring change. And if we can create change, we create hope. Suid-Afrika het hoop nodig. Maar hoop moet en kan slegs verkry word as ons iets doen. As die ANC regeer met 'n 58% meerderheid in die nasionale vergadering, maar met slegs 27% van stemgeregtigdes in Suid-Afrika, dan kan ons 'n verandering bring. As ons betrokke raak en daardeur 'n bydrae lewer vir vryheid. Maar bo alles is ons hoop altyd gevestig, soos wat daar in die skrif staan in die Bybel, in u lig sien ons die lig. Baie dankie.
That's thanks to Dr. Pieter Groenewald, leader of the Freedom Front Plus. Next to come and address you is Mr. VF Hlabisa, President of the Inkatha Freedom Party. Mr. Hlabisa.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me greet the media, the leaders of all political parties we have been engaged with since yesterday, Professor Gumede and your team, and my fellow South Africans. The past 2 days have been challenging but fruitful. I believe we emerge with renewed hope for South Africa's future. As you have heard, we have agreed on much. Paramount amongst this is that as a country, we need an alternative government that will put South Africans first. Compatriots, time is now. I will repeat what I said yesterday. As politicians, we cannot bring change alone. This must be a joint project for all the people of goodwill in South Africa, including civil society. We cannot save South Africa without you. We need every single South African who is eligible to vote to stand up and join the fight for a better South Africa. Do you want to live in a country where your children can play safely on the streets, where the lights are always on, and where each person who is able and willing can get a decent job? Do you want to live in just, inclusive, and prosperous South Africa? I believe your answer is a resounding yes. For this reason, the IFP would like to issue a clarion call to South Africa's 13 million unregistered voters and to South Africa's 14 million dormant voters. These 27 million voters are a sufficient number to remove the government of the day that has failed our people. The people of South Africa are not happy about how our country is governed. Almost everything is falling apart and going from bad to worse. This is why the people of South Africa must speak loudly and clear in 2024 and say enough is enough. The 2024 general election will be a turning point, a watershed a make or break moment for our country. The government that has failed our people, dashed our hopes, and destroyed our country must be removed from power and replaced by an alternative government that will revive hopes, dreams, and aspirations of our people. It therefore falls upon all of us as people of goodwill to stand up and mobilize everyone, young and old. This is not only for our own sake, but for the sake of our children, our country, and future generations. Everyone must be encouraged to register and vote to replace the failed government with an alternative government that will be decisive in fighting crime, ending load shedding, closing porous borders, bringing an end to poverty and inequality, and creating a conducive environment to attract investors, to rebuild our economy, and thereby create much needed job opportunities. Nothing is impossible. Let us all stand up, save, and rebuild South Africa. We can and we must. Let us do it. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hlabisa, President of the Inkatha Freedom Party. Next to speak is Mr. John Steenhuisen, Federal Leader of the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very, very much, Program Director. Good afternoon to colleagues, members of the media, but most importantly to our fellow South Africans. As we wrap up these 2 intensive days of the National Convention, we as leaders emerge hopeful about the future of our country. Much like the historic negotiations which took place here 32 years ago at the CODESA negotiations, that went on to change the course of South Africa forever, the multi-party charter of South Africa is going to do exactly the same. When I first announced the DA's commitment to a project like this back in April, there were very, very many naysayers who said that this group of parties, this group of leaders, could never even reach the point of sitting around the same table. And yet, here we all are today, signing a historic and unprecedented agreement to rescue South Africa. Today, without any doubt, I can say that this agreement has brought hope back to South Africa. I'd like to thank the members of the DA's negotiating team, Dr. Leon Schreiber and Mrs. Saviwe Garube, as well as the incredibly hardworking Mrs. Sandy van Hoogstraten, who did a lot of the heavy lifting over the course of the last 10 weeks. I want to thank Professor Gumede and his team, but also to the leaders for the robust, but I think good-natured and well-intentioned debates and discussions that we had. Yesterday, I asked South Africa to judge the outcome of these 2 days by whether or not they provide real solutions, real hope to the people of South Africa about a better future. And using that metric, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that this convention has been a resounding success. We have collectively agreed on a shared vision, shared principles for a new government, and a minimum program of action to address the urgent problems that present such an existential risk to South Africa and our country's future. The 7 political parties in this charter have come together to keep the ANC out, keep the EFF out of power, and provide, importantly, a new alternative to rescue South Africa in 2024. During all of these deliberations and discussions and debates, the people have been top of mind. Because South Africa cannot continue for a moment longer under the current trajectory. Half of our citizens live in abject poverty. 7 out of 10 young people cannot find work. 80% of learners in schools cannot read for meaning at grade 4 level. The electricity crisis is destroying what's left of our economy, and communities are under siege because of crime and drug abuse. Corruption has wreaked havoc in our public service, and millions of South Africans can no longer feed their families. All of these crises can only be resolved if we remove the ANC, because they have broken South Africa. We, this charter, are going to be the ones that rebuild our country. I'm deeply grateful to the leaders who have joined hands to undertake this momentous task. However, we can only achieve a majority for this charter if we can partner with the people of South Africa. So I'm now calling on every South African, wherever you may be, in whatever corner of this beautiful country you are, that we need your help to rescue South Africa. Go out and claim your rightful ownership of this project, because this project is about the people, not about the politicians. And the very best way you can do this is by going out to register to vote. There are 27 million people in this country who did not vote in the last election. Your country needs you now, your people need you now, and this charter needs you like never before. Now is your moment. We fundamentally believe that South Africa is a beautiful country, and she's well worth the fighting for. So let's go out and register to vote in our millions and millions, and next year help this charter sweep the ANC out of power and start to chart a new trajectory for all South Africans in this beautiful country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. John Steenhuisen, Federal Leader of the Democratic Alliance. I know now that this is the moment that many of you here have been waiting for. Okay. So I'm going to take questions and we'll manage them, and I'll take 4 and then we'll answer them, and then we'll come back for another round, okay? Just to make it easier in that context. So can we still start with what we have done as the days have gone past? Tell us who you are, news agency you're from, and the question that you have. All right. I'm trying to start with people who haven't had their hands up before, but okay, so I'm going to start with the gentleman in the front with the tie, and then the gentleman at the back with the beard, and then I know it's Mail and Guardian. Am I right? Okay. Okay. And it's ENCA. Okay, then I'll go to that side, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, as the next round. Okay, you noted. There'll be other rounds. Don't worry, I've seen you. Okay. All right. Can we begin with that? Can you please start with your questions? Okay.
Okay. So my name is Julia Kumano from Newsroom Africa. The first question is on the manifesto, the joint manifesto. How is this going to work? Each party is going to have its own manifesto launch, and will you have a joint manifesto? Or is it just going to be a document that's going to be circulated? And on the other question is the smaller parties, the DA in Parliament wants a threshold with regards to parties that can be part of a coalition. So what happens to the other parties that you're already in coalition with right now? Because I don't think they meet that threshold. Was this discussed during the talks that you had?
Thanks very much. Can I just ask, if you're asking a question, the second question that you asked just was clear, it was directed to the DA, but the first question, did you want everybody to answer, or was there somebody specific that you wanted to address it to? Okay, thank you very much. Next person up, we've got the microphone. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Chris White with Indaba Africa. And at the risk of missing a chance to ask John Steenhuisen a question after 3 years of trying to get to him, my question is for Neil de Beer. Mr. de Beer, you served in the old government during the apartheid era, and you served under the ANC in the new government, and now you're here with this coalition that's trying to come up with the new government. Do you have a lot of hope, or woe, as you send out for cons, for this coalition going forward? That's my question for Neil de Beer.
Thank you very much. I think the next... Was it Mail and Garden? Yes. Okay. And then, oh, yes, sorry, INCA. Yes. Okay.
Just a couple of questions from myself.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
Inkatha from the Mail and Guardian. To anyone, particularly the parties that are currently in Parliament. I wanted to know if you had discussed the DA's campaigning style. There's been complaints and concerns around the DA campaigning around that smaller parties should not get the vote, that it is a wasted vote to give it to smaller parties. Was this discussed? I want to ask you, there's been a lot of comments on Twitter around the fact that what we see on this panel is males, and that we don't see females. And in fact, when I looked at the women that were there with you, I could only count 3. What does this signify? Because this is similarly, Mr. De Beer, it's similarly to Codesa, where women were trying, fighting to get into the room. What does this signify? And how do you, can you just touch on how you ensure that this is not a representation going forward? And Mr. John Steenhuisen, in terms of, and this is outside of the coalition, but in terms of the 2024 elections, if your party declines in next year's elections, will this be an indictment on your own leadership? And what does it mean to you, given that there's a precedent that has been set by the party that a leader who declines in the electoral vote has resigned before? What does it mean for you? Will you resign? The last question is, Mr. Herman Mashaba.
Okay,
Mr. Herman Mashaba.
It's not fair. Okay.
I wanted to ask, are you satisfied that the DA will no longer, or the DA does not have any intentions of going into bed with the ANC come 2024? Thank you so much.
Okay, the ENCA speaker, and then we'll go into answers.
Treaty Jones, ENCA. Just first question, could be directed at anyone. What are the objectives of how a member is brought on to the coalition bloc, and who are the potential parties to be brought on? I know there was a conversation around the ActionSA wanting PA to be brought on board. Was that discussed? And of course, secondly, in terms of principles of power sharing to Mr. Mashaba, we now know that the leader of the largest party in the bloc will become a leader of government. Are you happy with that, particularly what we saw in Johannesburg before, where there was a bit of a tussle over ActionSA wanting Funzi Ngobeni to be the mayor, but the DA insisting that they will have their candidate be the mayor, despite the numbers not being on their side? Are you happy with that? And just lastly, what are the deadlock rules if the parties don't meet thresholds for parliament as well? Just one last question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The first question was dealt with in relation to the manifesto, and I might put him on the spot to make it unfair. Does Professor Gumede want to answer that or not? Okay, can I ask one of the party members to put their hand up? I just thought it'd be easier than picking on one person. Okay. Do you want to answer, Dr. Mfont?
I can answer.
Certainly, thanks. Can you come forward? I'm just reminding you the question was about the joint manifesto.
You must understand that this is a multi-party charter for South Africa, not a manifesto, as a separate political party. That's a difference. That's why I said it's a unique situation where there is a coalition around, as I said, a multi-party charter for South Africa with sound principles and sound priorities. It's there. Now, each and every party will make their own contribution to those principles, and there will be differences. And in the end, we must remember that the formal coalition will only be formed after the election. And then, because we only have 14 days, we will have to ensure that even if there are new partners, that we can combine them, but it must be in line with the principles and the priorities. Therefore, it is not a manifesto, it is only a charter like in Afrikaans sê ons dis 'n veelparty handves vir Suid-Afrika. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Groenewald. Okay, good. Okay. So I'm calling up Mr. Steenhuisen to answer all the questions related to him.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, Junior. Obviously, there's a parliamentary process. We discussed it. That process will unfold in Parliament. There's still a lot of discussion to go. The bills are up for discussion. They circulate to parties, and I'm sure, like any legislative process, there will be lots of give and take and discussions as those bills proceed through Parliament. So, our Chief Whip, Civic, has tabled those 3 bills in Parliament, and we will participate in the process, which will also include, no doubt, a public participation process. Whether, in fact, these things can be done before the election, well, we're hoping something can be done to stabilise coalitions, but it's not been a source of discussion here. We've agreed that we need to work together to be able to try and build that majority. I'm very happy to say the DA's campaign style did not, contrary to used to the otherwise, be discussed. But what we did discuss was how we can campaign in a way that builds each other up, that creates faith in the South African people, that we are working together. Now, we all agree we're not, politics, as I said in the meeting, is a contact sport. And we're not Pollyannas. But I do think that we can engage on our differences in a constructive way that does not undermine the faith and the confidence that we're hoping to build up from people here. I really think, guys, in the 4th estate, that the 3rd estate should demand the same levels of accountability going forward. So if your newspaper readership drops below 9,000, I think that you should be held accountable too, and we should be able to ask if you should be resigning as well, because your readership has fallen below 9,000. The next before I end up in Paddy Harper's column again on Friday, let me just say that was said tongue in cheek. But let me just say that of course leaders take responsibility for election results. It's accepted precedent the world over, not only in South Africa, and the chips will fall where they may. And if them's the breaks, and you get on and do what you need to do. Thanks. I don't know who's marked this. Is this ours or theirs? I don't know. No. Is it ours? No. Not someone's. Sorry. There we go. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, John, for waking up the room. To answer the next set of questions, Mr. Walling's questions, Neil de Beer is going to come up, and he's also going to address some of the women.
Sorry, my question wasn't answered.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I think it was around what are the objectives of how a member is brought on, and in regards to the talks about ActionSA wanting the Patriotic Alliance to be part of this bloc as well. Was that discussed?
Okay, can I get Mr. de Beer up, and then I'll get a question coming through. I'm going through all the questions in order, and I'm trying to get the parties that are aimed at to all come up in one, to answer in one go, just to make it easier. Point taken.
I think there was a good Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away. You got to know when you got to run. I'll start with women first. It's a sad indictment that we still fight to hear our women speak. The UIM is very simple. We don't count the women in the UIM. We make the woman count in the UIM. I have a vice president who is a woman. I don't call her a woman. I call her my rock. We should do more. We are doing more. And we need the woman to rise. I look at you from this side, and I see many women who today have that equal footing and stand tall. Yes, we need more. Here we stand, but simple men. But I know when we're done here, we go home to a brighter woman. We should be. So to the lady asking the question, you are right, we need more and we need to do more. That's how we need to do it. On the matter of hope, yes, I was in the previous dispensation, and I fought for that dispensation, no doubt. When realizing that we needed change, I didn't take the coward way out. I got up and I said, we need to change. Doesn't mean the other side did not also get up and do what they needed to do. Chris, today, having looked at both sides had a failure, and both sides need to be corrected in the future. This is the way we do it. We need to realize when we are wrong, and we need to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes going on. I see hope. I really do, and this is the reason we are here. And on the smaller party issue, yes, campaigning is hard. In these discussions, we had to put it on the table of what our goals are. We know there are thresholds, and we know as a smaller party in this charter, we have work to do. And if we all work together, we will make it. If we fail, obviously we gave it a very good run. It's up to us to reach those thresholds and to ensure that we've got our seat in 2024 at the table. And I can just end by saying, I see myself as an equal in this leadership and at this table. And never have I felt at all that I am being seen as a nobody or as a person that doesn't have a say. And I look forward to that future.
Thanks very much, Mr. De Beer. I'm then going to call on Herman Mashaba to come up and answer the questions that relate to him.
No, thank you very much for the questions addressed to me. And I really hope and trust that our media people have already circulated this document to you. Has it been? If not, I would really request that it be done to please, so that when I make reference to this, because we have now signed on this particular matter, because the question posed to me about whether we've resolved our issues with the DA, concerned with the ANC, it's actually covered in the declaration of intent, which I'd like to read to you, for those who've not received the document as yet. It falls under 7.1. It reads as follows. Signatory powers to the multi-charter for the South African commit to South Africans and to one another. That, one, we are unequivocal about our commitment to the vision, priorities, principles, and common programs of the Charter. Therefore, we will not entertain any working arrangement or co-governing arrangement with the ANC, EFF, or any rival formations, and will not vote for any office bearers of the ANC and the EFF, nominated either directly or indirectly, at any inaugural meetings of the National Assembly, National Council of Provinces, and provincial legislatures. Lastly, our mission is to unseat the ANC, keep the EFF out, and usher in a multi-party government following the 24 national and provincial elections. And I'm sure you all witnessed all of us signing this declaration here in front of you. And obviously, as you're aware, it's something that ActionSA had concerns and genuine concerns, and I think all of us, we dealt with this matter with humility and maturity. So therefore, I guess we've got to really put this matter behind us and focus on the future, because we've got a binding document that we signed in front of all of us South Africans, and we all signed in total good faith. There were no AK-47s getting us to sign this document. Pule, regarding the leadership issue that you've raised, referring to the city of Johannesburg, Pule, I'm sure you were part of the media that attended the council meeting where the DA mayor was elected and the speaker and so forth. That is before this document was signed. This is what obviously preempted us ensuring that we agree upfront in terms of the principles of power sharing. And unfortunately, because there are just too many, I don't think it will really be fair. So these matters have been adequately addressed and in advance in terms of the power sharing arrangement. Whereas when we voted for the DA, Speaker, Mayor, and others at the time, we did not really have this arrangement, and that's what really created this problem. And that's what really prompted us as ActionSA to make sure that we get involved with our other partners, committed to unseating the ANC, because we care about the future of our children and the future of this country. So I hope that your question will really be addressed. Otherwise, it will take me time to really read this document. So I think from my side, our side as ActionSA, we're really very happy. And I'd like to really address this issue of the manifestos. I think we've communicated on more than one occasion. Professor Gumede did address this matter, including our governance principles and our priorities. And we did make mention of the fact that our technical people will obviously come out with a manifesto for this multi-party charter. But at the same time, this is not going to take away our independence as political parties. I invite you as members of the media, the 12th and to the 14th of September, ActionSA will be unveiling our policies and our offer to South Africans. It's not an event to be missed. It's not, I'm not joking, it's not an event to be missed. Because what we're going to be unveiling is something that this country has never seen before. And I invite you to come and obviously really to engage us on the policies that we are offering to South Africa, but at the same time, working in partnership with all these parties and inviting others. Because we believe, obviously, we need as the charter to ensure that we can get to 50+1. At this point in time, I'm sure all of you are aware, we're not yet there. If you look at it from a theoretical point of view, but one thing that we are confident, but we're not going, and we're going to work towards it. We are not going to leave it to the Almighty. We are going to pray every morning for the Almighty to give us the blessings, but we're going to work damn hard to ensure that we can invite South Africans to come out in their numbers, and not do it for this charter. They must do it for the future of their children, to go out and bring about a peaceful transition in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mashaba. There are also members of the media online, and Clifford from Jacaranda FM has asked, if any of the parties win with an outright majority, what happens to this coalition bloc? And Honourable Hlabisa has agreed to answer that for us.
Thank you very much for that question. You need a coalition government in a situation where there is no outright winner. For instance, at a provincial level, where it is going to be possible next year that there will be an outright winner, in that particular province, a political party that had an outright win will be able to form the government on its own, alone. It will be up to that political party if it wants to invite any of us, but there is no compelling issue on that one. The greatest possibility is that in South Africa at a national level next year, no one can have an outright winner. So we will be speaking of something that is highly not possible. A coalition has come to stay in South Africa. That is why we said, let us prepare for it beforehand so that we are not caught unprepared as what we see in other coalition government, like in the case of COJ. I think that one answers the question. But let me weigh in on the question of 1% threshold. As a political party that is in parliament, we didn't discuss it over the past 2 days, but the IFP has a position. We do not support the 1% threshold because we see some challenges it will create for smaller parties. Number two, I want to weigh in on the issue of manifesto. Let us not confuse it. Each political party will have its own political party that is identical to that political party. A joint manifesto will be a combination of all political parties in preparation for the government. That will be an alternative because you only have 2 weeks to form the government, to put together the manifestos in a period of 2 weeks will be highly impossible. But in terms of campaigning, each political party will have its own identical manifesto where it will be appealing to people of cause. It will be inviting people to take on board the members of the multi-party charter for South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're on round 2, and I recognized everybody already. Okay, I think that I started with Sunday Times, News 24. Okay, Sunday World, who's had lots of questions. It was the gentleman in the yellow, I don't know who you are, and then SMC. Okay, we'll take those like that this round. Okay, can we go? Can we start with Sunday Times? Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Sanda Moleva from the Sunday Times. Just got 2 questions here. The first one, I asked the Prof earlier, but he was not in a position to answer and said that it still had to go under deliberation. I'm interested in the political party sort of donor fundraising aspect of this convention, or charter rather. If there's a donor that says, I want to give to not one political party in the charter, but to the charter as a whole, I know you've spoken of proportional representation in terms of how power sharing will be done, but in terms of donor funding, will each and every party involved here be given an equal share, or will each party get a proportional share in terms of the funding that is available based on how many members or how big the party is? That's my first question. And my second question is particularly aimed at political parties that are already in government. Your agreement speaks of ending cadre deployment, and I, for the life of me, want you to help me understand how that will be executed. We've got the DA here, we've got FF+, we've got IFP, that are speaking of ending cadre deployment in particular, but the people in their administrations, in their respective offices, are deployed there by virtue of being, sent there by their political parties. I remember once ActionSA spoke of even creating a school of governance to prepare individuals into when they form government, that they'll have people that they have schooled to assume positions in administration. So when you speak of ending cadre deployment, what do you mean? Because every single party in the fabric of our society currently practices it. So what do you mean when you say you are ending cadre deployment? That's Sanda Moleka from the Sunday Times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. It was News 24, I think. Okay.
News 24. I just want to say that, firstly, I think the question on the representation of women was not adequately answered. And for this coalition bloc, which has been saying for the past 2 days that you are bringing change to South Africa, I think it is an indictment that you are not answering the question on women representation adequately or with the seriousness that it deserves. Secondly, I just wanted to also, in terms of, the professor was telling us earlier that the party, the leader of the party, the biggest party, will become the leader of government. Is that going to happen in the current format in South Africa, where the leader of business is the deputy president, or are you going to take a different direction? And my last question is, in the agreement of intent, I'm sorry if I'm mentioning it wrong, you speak of a party has to write if they want to exit, or it can be removed with if there is a consensus. Have you thought, or is it still early to say what would lead to this pact deciding that it wants someone or a party to exit? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Sunday we've got lots of questions in.
Absolutely, that's why I have to inquire. My name is Mawand. I work for the Sunday World indeed. Maybe my first question emanates from your response, Prof. Hlabisa, on the issue of the 1% threshold. Is it not concerning to you that that issue was not discussed? And the reason I asked this question is the fact that for the DA, which is championing that bill in Parliament, it needs the ANC, which through its Secretary General, Fidel Balula, in the coalition thing that was happening in Cape Town by the Deputy President, agreed with the DA as the ANC, which means that the DA needs the ANC, and if DA and ANC vote together on that bill, it passes, which appears to be against what you guys have agreed on here, that no one amongst these parties will work with the ANC. And that is my first question. Second question, Professor Gumede. Yeah, look, I'm bringing you back. I know you're retired. Independent facilitator. I'm engaging in semantic gymnastics here. Independent from what? You know, perhaps to be direct, how were you appointed as the chairperson? I'll leave the independent because it's controversial. As the chairperson of this particular convention. And I say this because, Prof, I mean, you write, you are an opinion maker in our media, and we know where your views stand on these issues. You are mostly aligned to the issues that have been deliberated on the second days. But I was just concerned about the perpetual use of the term independent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. There was one last question.
Let me ask the last question.
Okay.
Who is funding this process? I asked this question earlier on, also because, for instance, about a fortnight ago, I had a conversation with Mr. Groenewald of Civic, who's not part of this, but he mentioned a thing that he was approached by particular funders who had said that should he, as Shiluba, join this particular, which was mentioned at the time, and they would have an open check in terms of campaign funds to campaign going into the elections. And when I asked him who are these funders, he said to me, I must just look at the declarations by the IEC of the funders and I'll get my answers. Maybe is the Oppenheimer family funding this particular move, or individually you as the party? Thank you very much.
Okay, to you. Okay. All right. And it's the last question in this round, and then. Okay, then we're done. Okay. Guys, you're not going to be allowed to ask in the next round, yeah?
My name is Nomen Masongwini from City Press newspaper. Perhaps my first question will be that we are headed towards the elections now. We are now, as the ActionSA president indicated that he will be launching his manifesto. How are you hoping to promote your individual manifesto, bearing in mind that there is this kind of coalition, without jeopardizing your own manifesto. Secondly, is to pick on what Mr. Mashaba said, reading from the script, I think it's 7.1, where you said you are not going to vote or elect the ANC either provincial or nationally. In the past, experience has taught us that the EFF, particularly, without the agreement or being part of any coalition arrangement, has always voted with what or whom they wanted to vote to power. You know, in local government they've done so. But that has always also left many arrangement or coalition agreement in jeopardy, because anytime the coalition agreement or parties didn't agree with their principle or with anything that they want, it will be easy for them to either abstain and or vote otherwise, which many in Gauteng, when many local municipalities in Gauteng find themselves having to change mayoralships. How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to handle that when if this particular coalition is not, doesn't get the necessary percentage to be in government? Maybe the last one is that, with still regard to that, are you not concerned that by publicly declaring that the ANC and EFF in a way are your public enemy number one, are you not concerned that you might be driving them to work together and form a coalition government of their own, considering that they are number one, largest party, and number three, and the two of them at the moment command a huge following, and in parliament they are in the driving seat? Are you not worried that you have jumped the gun so in? Thank you so much.
Is that question to anybody specific?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Shotgun approach.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's Natasha Puri here from SABC News. Prof, you mentioned earlier on, okay, this question isn't directed to you, but I'm just paraphrasing what you said, that the leader of the largest bloc in the party will become the leader of government business, and well, he's right. In this current system, the leader of government business is the deputy president. But I don't know if I'm speaking on behalf of all my colleagues. We are interested in knowing, have discussions started around who will be president? And I think we really need to know these discussions, and we need to know the nature of the discussions. Will it be, for example, Hlabisa, will it be Mr. Mashaba? Have those discussions started? I know that this is just the beginning, and you will be negotiating further, but what are the nature of discussions around that? And then maybe to the smaller parties, Mr. De Beer, Mr. Claassen, Luyenge, if you don't make the threshold next year, will you still be a part of this pre-coalition government? What happens to you guys? Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. We're going to go into that round. Okay, I'm going to start. Yeah, I think the first question. Yeah, John's going to come up and answer. Okay.
Thanks. Well, while we didn't discuss how donor funds would be disbursed, we did agree that there would be joint campaign events and there would also be joint marketing of the pact. So I imagine that any money that came from a donor to the pact, well, the charter as a whole, would then be used for those joint campaigning and the joint marketing of the charter. I think that parties, and I think we must stress this, parties remain individual entities of their own. Their donors, their manifestos, etc., remain theirs. But obviously, if there is somebody who insists that they wanted to go to the charter as a whole, then obviously it would mean that we'd have to find a way to do that, and I'm sure there was that would be accommodated in the joint events and joint marketing of the pact. I think there's a very, very important distinction to make between political officials and the civil service, because I think there's clearly a blurring of the line. Now, let's be very clear. All over the world, in political offices, there are a certain number of staff members in an office that you're allowed to make political appointments. It's normal. The mayor of New York, the London mayor, members of cabinet, etc. But those staff are personal to the office bearer, and their term in office is linked to the office bearer itself. That is not cadre deployment. That is a political appointment. It's chiefs of staff, heads of ministries, etc. When that person loses office, the principal loses office, they leave the public service. Cadre deployment is completely different. Cadre deployment is taking somebody based on their party affiliation and putting them into the full-time civil service, where they make key decisions around government budgets, around tenders and contracts, that sort of thing. And that's where the problem lies, because those people then remain in the system and remain in places where their hands are on levers that they then abuse to facilitate things like state capture and the abuse of funds. So we must distinguish these. So yes, in an MMC's office, you will find a chief of staff who probably is a member of that person's party. And yes, you will, in a premier's office, find somebody who is their media relations person, who might be a member of the political party. That is not cadre deployment. That is a political appointment. How do we intend to end this? Well, we've currently got a bill before Parliament called the End Cadre Deployment Bill that would ensure that we insulate the civil service, no matter what party is in charge, whether it's the charter that gets into charge, whether it's any other party. You would be prevented from making these types of appointments that have hollowed out our public service and left it in the terrible situation that it is. Zukile, I agree with you about the representation of females, and I don't know what more we could have done about it, other than have resigned and handed over to female leaders before the thing. But I can speak for my party, and I was very proud to have Civic here, who has been an excellent negotiator as our team, and of course I've already said Mrs. Sandy van Hoogstraten, who has been a very, very good administrator and assistant there. So I can confidently say that we had a 50-50 representation. I can't speak for the other parties, but obviously this is something we're going to have to address going forward, because having looked at the incredible work that Civic and the incredible contribution that she made over the last 2 days, I think we'd be certainly better served by having more females in the room. I think that the leader of government business in the current configuration is the deputy president. But the two positions are distinct in the Constitution. It's dealt with in Section 91(4) and 91(5), which distinguishes two there. The leader of government business is an incredibly important position because it is where the nexus for your legislative agenda, getting it through Parliament, getting your reforms passed, are going to be so fundamentally important. I would like to think that every party at this front table is going to get well more than 1%. We certainly need them to get more than 1% because we want to get to 51%. So obviously, we're going to be doing everything we can to get as many of the parties over the line and into Parliament so that we can ensure that their votes are being used. Who's funding this process? Well, certainly each party has been funding the process according to on a proportional basis, and the costs have been shared from venue hire to accommodation to some of the facilitation costs, meals, feeding the journalists, and all of that sort of thing. We've been sharing those costs. I must say, this thing about funding has become a very curious sport in South Africa. So in the last few days, I've been told that by some Fruit Loop on social media that I sold the Western Cape to Jeff Bezos. Go figure. Don't know how I would have signed the declaration of that sale, and that he's given tons of money to the DA because we've sold the Western Cape to him. I've been told that George Soros has given us 8 billion rand. If someone finds the 8 billion rand, could you please redirect it to me, because maybe I can get out of my 1984 Mercedes-Benz into something a little bit more comfortable going forward. But really, it is very clear who funds us. It is published on the website of the IEC. The Party Political Funding Act makes it very clear that anyone who funds a political party has to declare that money. It is an open document. It is available for anybody to go and see, and you can see exactly by name and size of donation who has been funding the political parties that are represented in South Africa. I'm very excited about the future, but certainly, Mwande, if you find that missing 8 billion, please send it our way. Go to the website. It's there. It's all there.
Sande, I think the question regarding the funding for this charter, and I had Mr. Baloyi was offered. Can you please, who's got contacts with them, please, ActionSA is happy to take that money anytime. Please, I beg you, I really mean it, because, cash is really very tight to really run this type of operation, because when this arrangement was made, we all committed, Sorry, it's me. We all committed as each party to really fund this project ourselves. So I wonder why we were so unfortunate not to be offered this. So please, if that funder is still around, please, I would really, I'll give them the invoices, what ActionSA paid. We were here, so it does not have to really doubt our intention to this commitment. So please, I'm making that request. The exit matter, I think John never, did you address it? No, okay, I can address it. Look, I think we got together here, we signed our values and our key priorities, and if you're going to really be a political party operating outside our values we've signed and our clear priorities, unfortunately, you're not really welcome to really be part of this. And we've agreed it's not going to be by majority, it's going to be by consensus, including if you want to exit on your own. We can't really force you to really be part of this arrangement. So parties are here on a voluntary basis. And our committees, they're really committed to this. The appointment of Professor, I guess I can also take the liberty to answer for him as an independent person. For us, over the last 3 months of negotiations, we realized it was really key to really get someone from outside. Because in the beginning, we used to rotate the chairmanship of meetings. But we realized we really needed someone from outside. And it was not an easy decision, and we took a chance. And just right now, in our closing session, we had to really pay special respect to Professor Gumede, because, for me, as a South African, I find it really very strange that we could fight apartheid, including putting our bodies on the line. But today it's not easy to really get to South Africans. South Africans are scared of democracy. And for someone like Prof. Gumede to have accepted, and all of us as political parties to compromise, when one of us suggested his name and made advances to him, we really personally, Prof, from ActionSA's point of view, thank you so much for having accepted to really play that role. And you really played it with distinction. Without you, I don't think we would have really had the opportunity to sign this historic arrangement. We're really grateful for you having accepted this responsibility. In terms of funding funding generally, I'm sure all of you are aware, as ActionSA, we're one of the most compliant political party in terms of political funding. So I don't think, if you want to really know what funding we got from who, please just visit the IEC website. You don't have to really ask us, just go to the IEC website, because we don't really hide funders who find us to assist us to ensure that we we can promote democracy. And we are proud of those funders who come to the party to assist us in ensuring that our democracy can really be vibrant and ensure that the future of our kids can really be a secured one. The issue of EFF, ANC working together, concern, why should it be a concern? If they want to work together, let it be. That's not really our decision. The reason why we are here together as political parties is to say we can't have an ANC government here after 29 years of destruction of our country. And why? Obviously, we would not really work with EFF as a ActionSA, and I think all other parties agree. We agreed on a free market economy. I don't think I'd want to get involved in negotiations with someone voting with us when we're in Parliament, asking us to run bakeries. That us as government, we must have bakeries. No, I think, our policy offerings between us as ActionSA and EFF are so diverse, I don't even want to begin the process. But I've already declared openly, and I'm declaring to you, at local government level, us as ActionSA we've got absolutely no problem whatsoever working with the EFF at local government level. Because at local government level, no policy considerations. It's about approval of the budget, where we're going to be spending the money, no policy differences. But at policy level, at national level, to be honest with you, I don't want to lose my house. Because obviously if EFF comes, because if EFF takes over this country, my house is gone. The land out, my title deed is gone because the EFF says the land must be owned by the state. So you can imagine I must have such discussions. And as I said, ANC and us as ActionSA, please leave us out. We've made it clear, including our own party. Some of our leaders who we had when we started this party left this party because they wanted us to work with the ANC. And we made it clear, please, we show you the door. You ask us to work with the ANC, we show you the door. We know ways that, as long as I'm the leader of this party at this point in time, because I am the leader, and my party might decide one day to work with the ANC. If they want to work with the ANC, Herman Mashaba has declared that he's happy to step aside, because there's just no way that I can really work with the ANC. I cannot really explain this any further than that. In terms of the leadership, Natasha, we've already articulated this, that we've not agreed get into the specifics about who's going to be the leader. We've obviously, in the document that we've made available to you, is that it is not necessarily that the party that is going to emerge as the biggest party in this arrangement will automatically be the lead or the president. We just obviously spoke the principles. We did not really get into whether it's going to be Neil de Beer or it's going to be John Steenhuisen or Mr. Hlabisa. So we're still really far from that, and we agreed those issues can really then be discussed. Whether we agreed whether it'll be something that it's necessary to discuss before the election or after the election. I think the agreement is that those discussions must be held after the elections. But the principle is actually agreed, which is actually quite good. I think all of us are quite content with that. If there's anyone who's not happy with the arrangement like that, there's not really much we can do. And can I address this issue of female leadership? I think it's yes. I mean, it's really unfortunate that we don't have women here. But at the end of the day, invited the leaders of political parties to really be here. So, and I'm not really taking advantage of the platform. In 2 weeks' time or in a month's time, you come into our inaugural policy. Or you are most welcome to visit our website right now. Look at the Senate of ActionSA, which is the highest decision-making body of our party. So you can either visit our website to really look at the representation of everyone in the party. We're really proud of who we are as a political party and our representation. So thank you very much. I don't think, I'm sure I've covered everything. Yeah, thank you so much.
So next up is going to be Mr. De Beer. Okay.
You know, I don't put things through a washing machine. I just say it as it is. I'm an unfortunate politician. I was a businessman and I'm now in politics because I really want to make a change. So no, I'm not South Africa's Donald Trump. I don't have the money, but I'll tell you as it is, because the truth is the truth. There's life before politics and there's life after. We started as the UIM a journey, as a small party. I'm addressing the question of what happens if we don't get threshold. What happens to the parties, SMP or ourselves, that still need to be tested on a national level. We are done as the UIM. We can count. It's obvious. We have our own polls and we check where we stand. If we get 1 seat, we're in. If we get 2, we are blessed. And if we've got 3, we'll bring thunder. But I am clear, crystal clear. We'll go to National Assembly next year. You'll see me there. Someone said, will you be president? I said, that matters not. What matters is that outside Cyril's house, my poster will be on a pole, and he'll see me every morning and every night. This is my benefit. So let's make it clear, I am not taking part in a race as the UIM to lose. If I did when I was in SA Rugby, no, you didn't know that. I was the manager of the Springbok under-21 rugby team that won a World Cup in Argentina in 2005. And we won it well. So hear me well. I'm coming with this team to the game, and I'm going to make sure, because when we beat Australia that year, there's probably some of them still looking for parking space, like we beat the hell out of them there. So hear me well, I'll be there, Chris will be there, and we'll join our colleagues, and then we'll rah-rah that parliament to victory every day. Kom haal ons as jy kan.
Thanks, Mr. De Beer. Mr. Hlabisa is going to answer 2 of the questions, and then Mr. Groenewald. Dr. Groenewald, sorry, I've got to... Okay, do you want to come first? Yeah, sure, sorry.
Thank you. I will quickly answer on the 1% threshold and the dialogue, the national dialogue. There was a question. Well, firstly, we must separate the two. The national dialogue is nothing else than an initiative from the ANC government. Now, firstly, the fact that they start with such an initiative is actually proof that they know that they can get below 50% of the support in the election. And they start panicking, and what they want to do, they focus it on legislation in Parliament. So we must just distinguish. And of course, the way they want to do it is to ensure that there is some legislation that will determine that even if they have less than 50%, that they can still be in government. For instance, they wanted in legislation that the biggest party in a coalition's leader must be the president. Now, once you're the president, you appoint your cabinet. So that's what they are trying to do. The 1% threshold, for the Freedom Front Plus, you must remember that the 1% threshold will be to our benefit because we will have more representatives. Go and make the calculations. If you take the 2019 election results of the percentage of voters, and I made that calculation, if you apply the 1% threshold, you actually disenfranchise almost 600,000 people's votes. There will only then be 5 parties left if you put the 1% threshold in terms of the 2019 election results. And for the Freedom Front Plus it is that we should not disenfranchise people. Part of the problem that our people don't want to go and vote, they think their vote don't count. And that's a problem. We must encourage them to ensure them that even if you vote for a specific political party that is dealing with your interest, then you can still vote and your vote counts. So for the Freedom Front Plus, it is about your vote counts. And we are already on record where I said that we will not sign the declaration of the ANC government because they're trying to involve and get people or parties in to sign, but we know once you sign, they will put their interpretations on wide definitions like in the interest of democracy and all that sort of things. So I hope that explains it. But can I say it's in the multi-party charter for South Africa, it is open for each and every political party on its own, whether they want to support that process and whether they're going to sign such an, can I say, declaration. It's not part of the charter we have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Just to give more clarity, Sisanda, on your question of catered deployment. Catered deployment, which we are against with, is a blind deployment of people because of their political membership with no competence or relevant qualification. My sister from News 24 on the issue of women representation, we acknowledge our first meeting did not give a fair representation in terms of the full term. We don't want to beat about the bush on that one. Point taken. Let me just put more flesh on the issue of Professor Gumede. I think there is one thing which I'm not sure it was done properly. Professor Gumede does not come alone. He has a team of specialists. I think the gentleman is still here. Yeah, he has a team of specialists in various aspects. And it was a long process. We shortlisted from many people up until we eventually said, let us settle on this one, approach him, and after many conscious consideration, knowing his background, he eventually agreed to our request. So now he is independent in the sense that he was not just picked as a single person, but it was a long process that eventually said, after shortlisting, let us take Professor Gumede, because he also indicated a team of experts who has assisted us to overcome any deadlock over the past 2 days. On the question of who is funding, the IFP made its own funding for us to be here, which I believe other parties also did the same. Are we not worried about that is City Press, the EFF ANC issue? We're not worried. It is up to them if they want to work together. I'm sure the experiences at COJ will be a best teacher for them. I just want to end there. It will be up to them. We are not worried. I'm sure they have seen it enough. Let me end with this one. We made a conscious decision not to enter in as to who will be the president. For one, amongst other reasons, whoever could be identified now will give advantage to his or her political party at the expense of others. So now we felt let us give a fair platform to all political parties, and that question will be entered to immediately once the results are out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hlabisa. Just the last question from the SABC was addressed to the two smaller parties, and I'm going to call upon them both to come and answer those questions.
Will small parties continue with this charter when we don't win? And I'm only going to talk on behalf of Spectrum National Party. Each political party has the choice or the option to decide will they continue with this charter or whatever. But on behalf of Spectrum, we want to continue because we're in it to win it, no matter what. We need to remove this elephant that is destroying us. We need to remove them. And maybe just quickly also on funding, we want to encourage businesses. Please, this is an expensive exercise to run a political party. It costs us millions of rands just for posters. That's probably our biggest expense. So we're probably going to open up an account very, very soon, a multi-party account. And you are more than welcome, businesses, to please support us and fund us. At this moment, our smaller parties, we are self-funded, and some who are fortunate to get big funding so they can get much better exposure. So please, businesses, and then maybe for those who are confused about what are we talking about 50% plus one, I think it's confused with a lot of voters. Remember, if 20 million people go and vote on election day, and when the ANC gets 10 million votes in one, more votes, then our pack of our charter won't win. So our team need to get more than 10 million of that votes. Then we will be formed in a multi-party government and it will change your life for good. So how do we get rid of the ANC? Don't vote ANC.
Dr. Luyenge?
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me put this categorically clear, SABC. It is not in the vocabulary of ISANCO that we might not make it, individually or collectively. I don't know if we really belong to the so-called smaller parties. I don't think we are a small party. When we got seats in municipalities across the country when we were only 6 months old. To us, our being here is very clear. We are bringing our support to remove the ANC because of her deeds. Even if a miracle could erupt, it won't mean anything that maybe IEC has taken more from us because they did that in 2021. But with all what we have, we are able to live. No matter what happens, the charter is going to actually go up to where they belong. Secondly, the issue of KDAT deployment. KDAT deployment is unconstitutional. You can't get employment merely because you belong politically into the ruling party. That is not all. This thing has been there and it was left unchallenged. But it is good that ETA and other parties started to raise this thing. And it has killed the ability of government to deliver, because there is less standards that are there. You have directors that are grade 9, grade 7. They make use of the license that they get from the ANC, and that Christmas is coming to an end.
Thank you very much, everybody. That's going to end the questions. All members are going to be available for one-on-one sessions with any of you. They are here now. Can you please organize it through the communication people? Thank you for your patience. I hope we've now answered all your questions, and as the media, you're smiling a bit better. Thanks very much. The formalities are over. Okay.
Well spoken, VM.
South Africa. That was the closing press briefing here at the Empress Palace in Johannesburg, South Africa. This is where the National Convention for 2024 took place between yesterday and today. The multi-party charter of South Africa has tabled solutions that are geared towards unseating the ANC and ushering in a new government in 2024 for South Africa. I, for one, being a citizen of this country, am absolutely proud. I am proud that I exist within a room of political parties that have chosen to put South Africa first and our interests. This has been displayed in the signing of the declaration, in the communication around the shared vision, in a shared name, and core pillars that are going to be a center stage of government decisions coming in 2024. So remember again, South Africans, as exciting as this moment is in South African history, it cannot see the ultimate goalpost without all of our participation. So it's important to ensure that we all show up. All the 27 million South Africans that are still abstaining from the polls, we need to get out in our majority and ensure that we are registered to vote correctly. So visit check.da.org.za. Use your power, because only the registered have the power to unseat the ANC in 2024 and usher in a new government. So that is it for us for between yesterday and today. That concludes the National Convention for 2024. I am signing out. Karabo Khakao.